Hey everyone, David here. Have you ever felt like taking up space is one of the most challenging parts of life? This week, Kyle and I are unpacking what holds us back from showing up fully in the studio, in our communities, and in our own lives. But before diving into today's episode, we'd love to ask you a huge favor. And if you're not already subscribed to our show, if you could take the 2 seconds to click the subscribe button wherever you're streaming us, we'd be incredibly grateful as that helps us scale and grow our podcast. Let's dive into today's episode. Thanks so much for being here.
Welcome to the Yoga Pod Class. I'm Kyle. This is a screen-free yoga podcast. Some weeks we guide you through practice, and other weeks we explore how patterns we notice on the mat show up in our daily lives.
And I'm David. Whether you're here for the movement or the meaning, we've got you covered. Thanks for being here. Let's dive in.
Welcome back to the Yoga Pod Class, everybody. Today we are discussing or diving into David's last class on taking up space, and it's a conversation that I'm really, really excited about. This was an amazing class with a really great theme, and David, I'm excited to hear your perspective and your insight on this class. But before doing that, we have to play this recording. It is. As you all know, as we've been mentioning, we've got the chime in section available on our website, an opportunity for you to share your thoughts, your feedback, ask questions so that we can hear your voices. And if you don't want to share your voice, you can always send us over a written message as well. And we got this lovely message from one of our biggest French fans. So, Trudy. So let's just go ahead and play this. Let's play this clip.
Hi, David. Hi, Kyle. It's Trudy, your number one fan from the French fan club. Just wanted to say thank you so much for yet another great Friday morning. What a start to the day. I love your reference to the sun not asking permission to shine, not making itself small, not hiding away. It's a beautiful day here. Great start to a Friday. You guys, please just keep doing what you're doing. Love it.
Oh, David, isn't that so good?
She's the best. That just like I like almost like brings a tear to my eye
I know.
to like
That
hear
makes my day.
someone. It truly, and it's so nice that I know Trudy practices with us regularly, and it's really nice to hear that and to hear that the classes are landing and being appreciated.
Yeah, and I think I've mentioned this before, but we put out a lot, but you don't get a lot in return, right? I mean, for the number of people that listen, we might get a like here and there or a comment here and there, but it's nice to know that the impact is is greater than what I think we see sometimes. But that said, let's start with that, right? The sun doesn't have ask for permission to shine. And I think that was so much part of the theme that you built around this class. Can you just start us off by talking a little bit about where this theme came from? Because it felt so authentic and so real, but it was also so it just resonated. And I think, yeah. So just start. Yeah, where did this come from?
This theme originally came from our last off the mat conversation. I remember we were talking through it, and yours was all about joy and having fun. And I was specifically, my mind was going to, oh, well, what's my favorite way to have fun? What's my favorite way to take up space? And that's kind of that idea of take up space that popped into my head. I was like, that's the theme for the class. And it's also really timely because it was the start of Leo season, as I mentioned a couple days ago on July 23rd, I believe. And Leo season's all about taking up space unapologetically, pursuing your passions, and just kind of like being your authentic self. And admittedly, I'm not the most astrologically educated person.
Yeah, me neither.
I don't even know if that's the right word, but it's something I think's fun and I like to pull from. And Leo's is a fire sign, as you know, my fellow Leo.
Yes,
And
yes.
it made so much sense to call to the sun and how the sun just shines and is the way it is without feeling the need to apologize or worry about how anyone is receiving it.
Yeah, yeah. And as you were saying the Leo season, kind of talking to it, I was like, that I see a lot of me in that, you know. And I struggle with taking up space that I deserve as well. But for the most part, I'm definitely that fire sign and usually unapologetic about it. So with that, I like that you took this theme, but then also, of course, tied it back to yoga philosophy, right? Around Satya. So say more to that. Could you tell us a little bit? I mean, Satya is kind of defined as truthfulness, but I liked how you mentioned that it's not just about, being honest to, or speaking the truth to the person that, that we're talking to. So how did Satya make its way into the class?
Yeah, so there's a book, The Yamas and Niyamas by Deborah Adele, one of my favorite books. I know you've read it, I've read it, and it's a really popular yoga philosophy book, and I highly encourage anyone who's looking to get more into yoga philosophy starts here because it's a really great foundation for understanding philosophy. And Satya is one of the yamas or ethical restraints within yoga, and like you said, it's all about truthfulness. And when you hear that, it's like, oh, that's super easy, truthfulness. Go and be honest with people. Don't lie to people. But Deborah Adele has this wonderful point within the book that a lot of the yamas and niyamas, I'm noticing the way she describes them, start internally. And what does it look like to be truthful with yourself? And authenticity is a big part of that. She has this wonderful quote in the book of, my greatest fear is, and I'm paraphrasing, but my greatest fear is that everyone I know will be in the room at the same time because I won't know how to act.
Oh,
And
wow.
I think that's so profound. And
Yeah.
if we're being truthful with ourselves, you don't have to remember anything. You just get to be authentically you, and that's
Yeah.
such a huge part of Satya. And when we're not doing that, I think we're kind of dimming our light, or maybe we're changing the way we are, perhaps to make the room feel a little bit more comfortable.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, well, thanks for bringing that in. I think that was a really nice alignment with, this theme that felt really authentic to you. I resonated with, but then also, kind of backed by that yoga philosophy. So, nice observation there. The thing that kept coming up through class, and I don't know if this was intentional or if it just felt natural and it came up, was that you deserve to take up space. Right? It came up so often it felt like a mantra. And it's like something that I kind of like want to put on a post-it somewhere and, like on my bathroom mirror or something like that, because I think that it's something I think we all know, but not know, right? I mean, you know what I'm saying, I think.
Hmm.
So talk to me a little bit about that. Was that really intentional from the beginning? Was that something that just felt natural for you? Or maybe you didn't realize it until you were done teaching or recording the class that was so present?
I don't think I realized how often I said it throughout the
Yeah.
class. I think when I talk about taking up space, I think it's a lot harder than we think it is
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
like again to fully be yourself, but also to like take up space. We want to, at least this is for me. I know I'm always so worried about how I'm impacting other people, what
Yes.
how I'm making other people feel, where I can tend to play a little bit smaller. And I think it's an important reminder to myself, to other people, like, hey, not only should you take up space, but you deserve to. Like, that space is there for you.
Yep.
And I think the yoga practice is a great place for that, for us to really start like practicing and cultivating that energy.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. The yeah, I think it's just a good kind of reminder. And I was for some reason I was brought back to, as you were saying that, in college I studied communications, and like one of the classes was on nonverbal communication. And they talked about, I remember talking about the amount of physical space that we take up. And the space that you're talking about is much larger than just our physical body space, right? But we embody that in the practice, which was really nice. But I remember us talking about how, like, think about how a woman sits, legs
Hmm.
crossed, arms, hands down on their lap, like everything is very condensed. And then you think about how, like, most men sit, arms spread out, the ankle on top of their knee, or like legs spread out.
Yeah,
Like,
man spreading. Yep.
man, is that what it's man spreading?
Yes, that's a real thing.
Ew, I don't like
I
that.
know.
But like, and think about how that is built into, culturally, right? Women, like, if you're a strong, passionate, loud woman, you're a bitch. You know what I mean? I mean, you're not, but that's what we say, right? And so
Yes.
even them taking, we ask them to take up less space, and that's then embodied physically. And I think that, I mean, that's what we were talking against here in your, or what you were talking against in your class, which was really good, that we all deserve the space. And even I noticed myself, I think you and I talked about this when we were in, I mean, not this specifically, but similar when I was in Colorado there. Remember when that guy came to our table and I was
I
feeling a
was,
little bit
yes,
threatened?
yes.
And yeah, we were at a table and there was a drunk like hillbilly that came to the table and like he was using the F word, the gay F word. And I noticed myself, I was sitting with my legs crossed. I probably had my hands crossed. And then all of a sudden he come over and my body language changed because I felt a little threatened. I uncrossed my legs. I stood up. I brought in my chest. I stood up taller. I kind of made myself ungay in that way, So it was like all of a sudden then I was like, oh, I need to take up space for my safety. So I think that we do this naturally, and maybe even subconsciously because of all of the things that we've been told by society.
That's I'm so glad you brought that up because that situation was popping into my head as you were talking. And I'm curious, okay, so that's like it's almost like a different type of taking up space because you felt if you were to fully take up space being a homosexual man that then you would have been potentially threatened by this
Yeah.
man, right? So
Oh
then you
no.
had to kind of like,
If I presented as gay,
yes,
I was threatened, right?
yes.
So I changed. I mean, I did it subconsciously. I don't think I consciously thought about it, but I realized I was doing it. I'm going to sit more like how a straight guy would sit. And lower my voice. But you were
Yeah.
saying, sorry, I think I interrupted.
No, that's exactly what I was hoping to get from this, and I think that's a lot of where this conversation was coming from, and this theme of taking up space. I think this class is for everyone, of
Yeah.
course, it always is, but I think it was just especially for people who need that reminder, like, hey, you're worthy, you deserve to take up space,
Yep, in
and
whatever form that is, right? Like if
exactly,
your legs are crossed and you're taking up like that's okay. If you're gay, that's okay. The space you're taking up is great.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting how that all kind of I didn't really realize that until we started chatting about how we embody that. But that's what we talk about is like how we embody these things, on our mat. So speaking of which, I think that's a nice segue then. Let's talk a little bit about how this shows up in our physical practice. So let's go back to Trudy's thing, right? The sun doesn't ask permission to shine. So can you say more about that and how that kind of manifested itself and how it felt for you teaching that to that theme in the physical body?
One thing I always try to do as a teacher, and I say it a lot more in my in-person classes, is I'm heavily encouraging people to color outside the lines, customize the practice. I'm just a guide up here. I'm offering a few tips along the way, but you make this your own practice because I think that's the beautiful thing about yoga. I like to teach a really simple sequence because that way someone who's never taken a yoga class before is able to follow along. But someone who has a very big, expansive practice feels like they have the space to go big, to lean into those big shapes. And that's something I always love to encourage because I know I've been in yoga classes and as we've talked about so many times, Kyle, I love the handstands. I love the big
Yep.
shapes. And I know some teachers get annoyed by that when you start taking those things when they're not prompted. And I'm personally under the belief that everyone should be able to practice the way they want. Everyone should be able to express their body and move their body the way they want, and to take up that space. So the sun analogy came in of, the sun doesn't think about shining. It just shines on everything. It just takes up that space. And that's the energy that I really wanted to try to introduce and remind people of during this sequence.
Nice, nice. How does this show up for you in your practice? Are there moments where I mean, just in reflecting now, where you might realize that you're taking up less space or more? Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Part of it is the whole, not always leaning into my handstand practice when I want to, and I'll notice like if someone will say like chaturanga or vinyasa or whatever, and I'll like plant my hands down, and I'll like think about it, and then I'll just go through a regular like high to low plank, and I feel like my body's like, why are we playing small right now? So it's just kind of an interesting thing. But another time is I'm a tall guy. I've got a very long wingspan as well.
Yep.
And there's a class that me and Summer love to go to, where the room is full, like totally full. You've probably got like 4 inches, 5 inches in between each mat. And when I do a back bend, goalpost my arms, I'm bumping arms with people.
You're like kind of like going in for a picture hug with people underneath each arm.
Exactly. So in that case, I'm also just trying not to like be that guy, the man spreader,
Yeah.
and I'm
Yep.
trying to be very mindful of everyone's space. So I'll do like back bend with hands to heart center, and I'll like lift my sternum into my thumb. So in that case, I do perhaps think I'm playing a little smaller, but I think that's kind of the time to do it, is when I'm not, elbowing the people next to me.
Yeah, yeah. What about this? We talk about, what Bradshaw talks about in The Funny Thing About Yoga, and he makes fun of on his Instagram, is like the yoga girl.
Yeah.
Right? Where like you say chaturanga and they're like doing a million other postures in between that. And do you think there's a balance there, or are you like, yeah, do your 50 different things and join us at some point? Or are you like, hey, color outside the lines, but not too much?
I think there absolutely is a balance to that.
Okay.
There's
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
I've had, and for those of you that don't know, there's this guy on Instagram. His name's Bradshaw Wish. He's hilarious. He's like a yoga comedian. We get a lot of inspiration from him, and he has this bit of the flowy yoga girl where he'll be like, one of his friends will be teaching a class. It's all like an Instagram skit, and they'll say chaturanga, and he'll like go and he'll like do a cartwheel and like a back handspring, and then like end up in like upward facing dog, and then like flip his head around and back to downward facing dog, and it's great. It's so funny. And it's really funny because I think we've all seen something like this in the yoga studio. And I was teaching a class recently, and I do encourage people to color outside the lines, but there was someone that literally, she might as well have been just like rented out the space and the heat and just did whatever she wanted.
Yeah.
And it was really distracting for me as a teacher.
Yep.
So I think I am maybe talking out of both sides of my mouth, where I'm saying like, do whatever you want. But I think there is a point where you did come to this class. You do kind of need to follow along to a certain extent.
Yeah.
As an advanced student, when you can pepper in the new things and your own practice without like distracting, one, the teacher, but two, the people around you as well.
Yep. Yeah. No, I completely agree. Yeah.
Also, that student left in the middle of Shavasana.
Of course.
It was just like, you can't make this up. I was like, this is literally the Instagram skit.
Yeah. No, absolutely. So when we talk about how this shows up off of the mat, what does that look like for you?
Oh man, this is really this has showed up a lot for me in the last week, and I'd love to unpack just like a few of these things for you, and I would love to hear your examples as well. But recently, this past week, as the listeners of the podcast know, I moved to Colorado, back in April of last year. I'm relatively new to the community, and I'm kind of making my way, establishing myself as a teacher in the area. And it's hard. It's hard when you're new, when you're a new new to an area, but you've been teaching for a little bit, and everyone's like, "Oh, how long have you been teaching for?" Like thinking it's like a couple months. It's like, like almost 10 years.
Yeah. Has it
And
been that long? Wow.
nah, it's only been like 8, so
Oh,
not to round
but
up too much, but
it is interesting that we use that as like they asked that, and I don't know if it's like I don't know what else to ask, but it's almost like I hesitate telling people how long I've been teaching because then does that mean that I should be really good? Or if you say it's 2 years, does that what are we really trying to understand by asking that question?
yeah.
But anyway, continue.
No, that's a really good point. And just like a sidebar on that, some of the best teachers I've practiced with have been teaching for like a couple years.
Yeah.
So like time does not always mean or turn into, I don't want to say skill, but I think what I'm trying to say is like new teachers can still resonate with you even if they haven't been teaching for
And
decades.
there's some teachers who've been teaching for a long time that are not very good.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
anyway, so continue.
Absolutely. So, anyways, so this past week has been a really interesting one in my community where one of my favorite teachers kind of disappeared from the community abruptly. I don't really know what happened, but they were a rocket yoga teacher and they had some really popular classes, and all of a sudden they're gone. And we only have so many rocket yoga teachers in our community, so I volunteered to sub his classes, and I'm going into these classes with all these people who were like me, love this teacher so much. And it's really hard and intimidating to go into that space and take the space of such a iconic teacher in the area. So it's kind of that thing where I get in there and I felt a little nervous at first, but then once the yoga starts and the breath starts going, it's like, one, it's not about me as a teacher. It's about the just facilitating the experience for the class, but also having faith and belief in what I'm doing as a teacher and knowing that as long as I like lead with this, I'm so passionate about this, I believe in it and I love it. I know that's going to come through. So I guess to full circle here, it would just be really easy to like kind of like want to play small and not take up that space. But it was just an opportunity to kind of exercise that muscle, so to speak.
Yeah. Can I dive into this a little?
Please, please.
What is it that makes you said at the very beginning that it's hard to go into these classes and sub, especially for a teacher that you said was iconic, but somebody that you look up to as well. What is it that's hard?
It's almost like this idea of like, oh, that's big shoes to fill for one, but for two, it's also the students that go there that are these like really heavy, intent, passionate, we'll say, really passionate and seasoned practitioners, feeling like I need to be at a certain level to facilitate a good practice for them.
What I'm hearing, of course, there's filling the shoes, right? So kind of, which almost sounds like being like the other teacher, right? In a way, right? Making sure I'm teaching at their level, like if there is a level, right?
Right.
But then also this, it's like, am I providing the right experience for them, or do they like me?
Yeah.
I want to make sure they like the class,
Yep.
right? And I think both of those kind of seem to be playing into the playing small, which is also that what I'm hearing is not being your authentic self, but trying to maybe fit. Like I'm gonna play small. I'm gonna be like not be as authentic or as take up as much space.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it does come back to that. Like ultimately, I do want to be liked and respected by the people in the community. So that I think that's where kind of the nerves came from.
Yeah, yeah. I don't want to give you advice, but I want to.
Please, are you kidding me?
Well, I don't like giving advice, but like,
Yeah, well,
but
to me it's different.
But maybe like a like just something kind of like a reframe of that mindset is that you're not going to be liked by everybody. And I think that when we take up the appropriate amount of space that we're supposed to, we let go of that because we understand that not everyone's going to like me. And those people that aren't for me, and that's okay. But you know what? There's gonna be a whole lot of other people that actually are because I'm being authentic to myself. And I'm reminding myself of this too, because like today I subbed a class And it was a smaller class, so I really felt like I showed up as myself. But I know that in the past, when I've subbed for teachers that I really admire and things like that, I stepped into that same thing, and I wanted everybody to like the class. But I think as a, if I were to do that now, it would be more about like, there's going to be some people that don't like it, and that's good. That's okay, because I don't like every class that I go to. I don't like every teacher that I take, and they might be a great teacher, and they probably have a following that they really love. That's really strong. I'm not one of them. So
Right. And we just kind of mentioned it, but I've taken multiple classes with really popular teachers and
yep,
that have huge followings, and it's like, I probably won't take that class again. It just
yeah,
wasn't right for me. And I think we have some yoga teachers that listen to this. I think something I noticed in this past year is I would come in and take on a class permanently, and the students that would take that class, a lot of them, some of them stuck around that were in that original like group that were there every week, but some of them fell off, and it was kind of like the class started at this amount, and then it shrank over the next few weeks
yeah,
as like the some people were like, oh, David, not for me. But then as time went on, the class number started to grow again.
yep,
And it's kind of like this idea of you have to pull the bow back to launch the arrow forward. Like there will be a time of, people you weeding out or people weeding out you and finding what they like about you or what they don't. And I think it's a very normal part of the
yeah,
process with growing a class.
yep, yep, and having the confidence that you are, you're talented and people like you. So David, what do you think some examples are of how, being hesitant to take up space shows up in real life?
A big way it manifests in my life, and I'm probably not alone by this, is I'm afraid to take up space just in the world outside of yoga because of a fear of how other people are going to perceive me, or them
Yeah.
judging me, or making fun of me, and just like there's like this feeling of like embarrassment that can come up
Hmm.
is really the first thing that comes to mind for me. What about you? Is there anything that you kind of feel comes up for this?
The last two retreats ago, the imposter syndrome was really heavy on my mind. Like
Yeah.
it kept coming up in meditation, and it was over and over and over. And like, I think in the yoga space for me, I know that can feel really present. It feels like it's been a while since I've had that, but in general, for a lot of my yoga career, that was something I think um, that I hesitated to do because of that.
Tell me
Yeah.
more. Tell me more about that specific story on the retreat and what kind of happened and if there was a moment of self-realization or anything along those lines.
It was one of these like, who am I, you know, this white boy from Minnesota to teach this mystical, powerful, practice
Yeah.
rooted in this philosophy that I know some about, but I feel like most times I'm only scratching the surface. And, and I just, yeah, those are the kind of things I think that I was thinking about at the time, and I was comparing myself and putting myself up against these other teachers that knew more than I did, that were better teachers than I was, and these type of things. And so I would play small. I would not, I think, speak the things that I wanted to speak and talk and theme the way that I wanted to theme, or teach that I wanted to teach. And yeah, I don't think I was being authentic. Where I feel like if I think this has corrected itself over the years. I think that once I let go of that fear and started to take up space is really when I feel like I was being more authentic to the practice, which is what I was fearing
Mm.
originally. So yeah, I think that that's kind of where that landed for me, and like it shows up in work sometimes too. Like, I mean, I'm great at my job, and I mean, I've been promoted like three times, but each time I step into a new role, I get promoted. I'm like, me? You chose me. So
Yeah. I love that kind of the cure for the imposter syndrome was just like doing it
yeah.
and doing it authentically. I
Well,
know. Yeah, please.
the one thing that I've been playing with my theme is just the idea of being ready, and I think you know this about me. I want to be ready before I go. I want to plan. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? I want things to be in place, blah, blah, blah. But what I'm learning is like, there's not, I don't think a nervous system feels ready. I think ready happens in the action. And so I think that that's kind of where that, you know, what you just said, is just doing it and then becoming ready in the action of it.
I love that. Ready? Say that again. Say that
Well,
again.
I don't know if I can. Was that
There
good?
was something. There was something really good. There was something really good in there. There was something along the lines of
Like
like
I don't
ready
think
is it. Ready is in the action.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't
Yeah.
know if like, when we start something new, I don't know if I've ever felt like 100% ready. There's always some uncertainty. There's some unknown. There's things that could happen. And I don't feel I ever really feel 100% ready until I move into action. And so I think readiness actually lives in the action.
I love that. That feels very thought provoking and profound. It reminds me of something my mom always said. My mom, such a sweet woman, but she was like the classic when we would have company, it would be madness like right before the company would show up at our house. But then once we were there, she was like the best entertainer, like so
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah.
And she had this quote that has truly stuck with me to my core, and it's over prepare, then go with the flow. And it's just like so wonderful. It's like do everything you can, and then once it's here, you just go. And you just do it.
Yeah. You kind of got to let go. It's letting go of that destination or the endpoint, right?
Yeah, yeah, so good. You mentioned imposter syndrome. I would love to share an example of how I
Please.
dealt with this recently. And it was just last month. I was back in Minnesota for my one of my best friend's wedding, and while I was there, I had the opportunity to I reached out to my original yoga mentor Tom, who's now teaching at Up Yoga, which is the studio I used to teach at, and I was like, hey man, we should co-teach a class while we're out there, and he was like, hell yeah, let's do it. And we had this great theme lined up, and we were very excited about it. It ended up being we taught the class on International Yoga Day or World Yoga Day,
Oh, that's cool.
and it was just like perfect. It lined up really well. But then like a
Yeah.
couple weeks in advance, I see that Johnny Kest is teaching a yoga class at one of the Lifetimes in Minnesota. And
Mm,
for those who don't know Johnny Kest, the yoga world is very big but very small. He is a yoga teaching icon. He's been doing it for a really long time. He is truly like world famous. He's had such a great impact on the yoga world. And I remember seeing that, and not only was he teaching the same day, but he was teaching the exact same time in the same
oh
city.
wow.
I was like, oh, well, shit. I guess we should probably look at rescheduling this class. This was just like my thoughts to
Yeah.
myself,
Yeah.
and then very quickly I was like, first of all, there is space for me to teach yoga, no matter who is teaching yoga. And
Yeah.
also, it's not about the attendance and the recognition. It's about doing this and this opportunity to collaborate with
Yeah.
my good friend and mentor. And the class ended up being fantastic. The room was full. People showed up, and it was a great time. And it's just such a nice reminder that just because someone is doing something and might be like more famous or more skilled than I am, I still get to create my art. I still get to put myself out there, and when I do that, there's always room. Is what I noticed. There's
Absolutely.
always room.
Absolutely. There is always room. And that person had to take up their own space in their own way.
Yeah.
And, and they were probably taking up the same amount of space that you are right now at one point. And now their space has grown, because of their, I think, willingness to expand. And, you will too.
That's such a big part of it is being willing to put yourself out there.
I
It's
know
it's
that's so
scary.
hard. Within social media, that's my hardest thing.
Right. We
That is, I don't like it.
we talk about that for our listeners. We talk about this probably
All the
every week of
time.
like
Yeah.
we really need to start putting ourselves out there on social media. But it's hard. What's so hard about that for you, Kyle? Because I
I
know
don't
I have
know.
I have my reasons
It
too.
feels cringy for some reason, but I don't know. I don't know. If anybody out there specializes in social media, maybe send us a chime in and tell us why this is so hard for people because I yeah, I don't know. I don't like talking to the camera. It feels kind of weird.
even though that's kind of what we're doing right now.
It is, yeah, and I think we're probably putting ourselves more out there here than when we would there. So yeah, thank you. Yeah, good point.
For me, it's just I worry. It comes back to this idea of judgment and feeling
Yeah.
judged, and like I think about my social media. I have people on there from middle school and high school and college who it's
Oh
just like
yeah.
these and it's like, why would I even care? Why do I like really
Yeah.
deep down I tell myself I don't care what anyone from my high school thinks about me. But for some reason, when it's time for me to post a video about taking up space in Satya, I'm like, I like shrink and I'm like afraid to do it for whatever
Yeah.
reason.
Yeah. Yeah. Let me ask you something quick. Like, kind of, I mean, I think we've kind of, I think, both shared and identified what the, the challenge is. Why, to you, why is it, what's important about taking up space? Like, why is that important for you? Because, I mean, you themed a whole class around it, right?
Yeah. A lot of it comes down to staying truthful with
Yeah.
yourself, being authentic with yourself. I think I shared it in Shavasana. One of my favorite speakers of all time is Wayne Dyer, and he has this whole point where he elaborates on beautifully, and it's this: don't die with your music still in you.
Mm,
And I believe that everyone, we all have gifts, you know. I think that's a term that's like used a lot, and I think it's very accurate. But I think we
yeah.
all have some sort of thing that we want to do or thing that we want to create, and when we don't do that, when we don't listen to that, we start to feel kind of like trapped, or at least I do.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm kind of stuck. But when I'm taking the time, taking up space, and doing this thing I love, this podcast is such an incredible platform to do it. I feel
Yeah.
alive. I feel aligned. I feel like I'm living my truth. And quite frankly, it feels like a devotion to the divine, to source, to God, whatever word you like to use. It feels like an expression of love when I'm singing that song of my soul. And I think it's so important for all of us to do that.
Yeah.
Does that make
And it's just,
sense?
yeah, it's interesting because like I mean, we're on camera. I see you and I hear your voice. Like the way that your body posture changed and the way that your voice changed when you started talking about how it would feel to do that was like a significant shift. And it was fun to see that in you. What would it look like? What does that look like for you to take up more space? Like maybe a couple of specific things.
It's something I'm actively working on, and I've
Hmm.
been actively working on for a while. This podcast that you've invited me to be on for, the last 10 months is such an incredible way to do it.
Yeah.
Taking up space in my yoga community here in Colorado, it's been
Mm,
a really great, interesting exercise of putting myself out there and teaching the way David teaches, not the way
yeah.
this teacher, and this teacher teaches. That's really a big practice and an ongoing practice. But I do think that whole social media thing
Yeah.
is kind of like the other area where it's like, oh, I could start dipping my toe in the water over there. What about
Yeah.
you?
Um, yeah, I also I'm gonna just follow suit on the social media.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, one, I think that would help us out. I mean, we've got great followership and stuff like that, but we want to continue to spread this, right? And I think that that is definitely one area for myself. Um, and the other, I think, is asking for help. I don't know why that's coming. That's feeling very present for me. And a lot of the struggles that I've had recently, it's like this: I'm going to do it alone. And so it's like that taking up space and asking for help and asking for support and knowing that people want to and that they care enough to and that I'm not a burden on them, I think is the other piece that I've really been practicing, but I also think requires, vulnerability, and there's courage and vulnerability, but there's, I think, taking up space in that, you know, emotion, it's emotional space and it's support.
I love that interpretation. Asking for help is absolutely taking up space because you're asking someone to kind of come into your world a little bit
We're asking
for
for their
assistance.
time and their attention
Yeah.
and their energy or whatever it is. So, yeah. David, as always, I just so appreciate these conversations. And this was a really good one.
I agree. It just
So
feels
thank you
good.
for, yeah. So thank you for the wonderful class. Thank you for the inspiration and all that you're doing here.
Absolutely. And one other way that I would like to ask to take up space right now, if I may,
Yeah.
if you've made it this far in the podcast, you listener, a really simple way to support us in this would just be to subscribe to the
Yeah.
podcast wherever you're listening to it, whether it's Spotify or Apple and or wherever. I don't even know, Kyle. You kind of handle where we are,
Yeah,
but
Spotify and Apple for now, yeah.
yeah, if you could ever subscribe, drop a rating, a comment, those little things go really far in supporting us, letting us know that you're out there, but also just helping us grow the show as well. It's a really, really nice, simple way that you can support us. So,
Yeah, yeah, and I think the stat is something, I think like maybe it's something like just over 50% of the people that are listening are subscribed. It's not, you know what I mean? So yeah, so that's a big ask, and I think something that we really appreciate. So, all right, well, thank you all so much for being here and for listening. We really appreciate you. David, again, thank you, and hopefully we'll see you next week when I'll be dropping a new class.
thanks, everybody.
Take care.